What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Scouting the Fins, part of the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast network, and also part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your co-host Hussam Patel, and joining me tonight is Coach Smith, our other co-host of Scouting the Fins. Coach, how are we doing tonight?
Hey, doing great. In the thick of football season, finally, best time of the year. I feel like all that I'm doing these days is watching film, whether it's from our practices with high school or circling back and watching some Dolphins film. So excited to be here again with you as always and talking some Dolphins football and breaking down some film.
Yeah, you had put up a video breaking down the offensive line and offensive performance against the Chicago Bears. There was a lot of uproar recently with the joint practices with the Detroit Lions. A lot of Lions beat reporters and writers were saying that the practice was quote unquote lopsided and the Dolphins kind of looked sloppy and couldn't get anything done. I don't necessarily see this as too big of a concern because you're supposed to make mistakes in practices. You're supposed to rehash them. You're supposed to watch film and get better at it. So we'll see what they look like come Thursday morning and joint practices against the Lions. Coach, I know you went on a little bit of a rant on Twitter earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I get that we got to talk about something. It's football season, but if you've been to those training camp practices, as you and I have been at, like you can understand when they get out there and they do their team sessions. It's not anything like playing in a game, right? When you get into a game and you receive a kickoff and you get into the flow of the game, the play calling, the way that you sequence plays, you don't get that in a training camp practice. You get maybe 5 to 10 plays with your number one unit before you move on to your number twos. And when you do that, you're not looking to sequence plays and set up the defense and take advantage of all that. You're just trying to get certain plays or certain concepts on film because what's more important to the team than what happens on that field is the ability to put that on video and to be able to go back into the facilities and to review that film and see where they need to improve. And that was the same thing out of that first preseason game. A lot of talk about them running the ball 4 times, 3 of those from the 2 yard line, not being able to punch it in on that opening drive. But now you have, three, second or goal to go situations from the two where you have film that you can sit in there, you can break it down, and you can fix it so that next time, hopefully we're in that situation, we have the answers that we didn't have before. And I would much prefer that over just going out there, running a play action, dumping it out to Tanner Connor in the open like Zach Wilson had the opportunity to do, because you don't learn anything from that. And I would much rather be able to come out of a preseason game saying we have this, this, and this that we need to work on, that we need to improve on, than just winning the scoreboard in a preseason game.
Yeah, that's not the most important thing in a preseason game. And then, like, once again, a lot of uproar of the Dolphins not being able to convert on short yardage. Admittedly, I was guilty of that. But you got to see why, because they wanted to work on it, they wanted to improve on it. And I'm sure they went back to the film room and all of the offensive linemen and tight end and running backs and wide receivers most likely might have gotten an earful of their missed blocks, their missed assignments, and what they forgot to do. One thing that came out of that, and that's it's one of our uh, other Dolphins podcasts, not on the network, but the Dive Bar podcast with some of the other guys. They had Warren Sharp on, and Warren Sharp unloaded his trade secrets, saying that the Dolphins need to run more 11 personnel in short yardage situations. He threw a whole bunch of stats saying that the Dolphins were one of the best in the league on situations that they needed 1 to 2 yards. And when they ran through 11 personnel, they were pretty successful. They were top five, top 10 in the NFL just for 2024 and 2022 to 2024. At the end, he clarified saying that he just found those stats an hour or 2 hours before the show. So I took it upon myself to research it myself with what I could. I scraped the data. found it and I posted it on Twitter. So look, guys, Mike McDaniel is not going to change his philosophy just so he can chase metrics and change up his entire offense that he has done and worked on tirelessly for the last 3 years. He's not running finesse 11 personnel on third and short. He's going to be heavy so the threat of the play action is there. He's not changing that unless the offensive line, whether it be the left side or the right side, if they can handle it. The research that I found and the distance to first down since 2022, the start of the Mike McDaniel era, the Dolphins have ran the second least amount in 11 personnel, which was 51 plays. And here's where they stand. They stand 25th in EPA per play, 32nd in success rate. And when we talk about success rate, we're talking about yards that they need to get to be successful. So on first down, whether it's first and 10, they need 50% of those yards. So if it's 10 yards, they need 5. Let's leave it at that. You can break it up into 10 increments. If it's second down, they need to be able to get around 60% of those yards. If it's third and fourth down, they need to get 100% of those yards. So if it's third and 3, third and 2, to have a successful run play or series, they need to get all of those yards or a little bit more to be successful. I don't necessarily focus on EPA because it's focused on situation, but the main goal to be successful, or if you're chasing metrics to be the best, is to get 100% success rate, get all those yards that you need. All right, so 32nd in success rate, 25th in EPA per play, and the most important metric is third down conversions. Since 2022, running out of 11 personnel in short yardage. Now, I classify short yardage between 0 to 3 yards. They are 32nd last, dead last in the league with 40% third down conversions. Now, in 2024, they only ran 12 plays out of 11 personnel in short yardage, and that's excluding any scrambles by the quarterbacks. They were 6th in EPA per play, 21st in success rate, and 24th in third down conversion. Still not any good. Now, they run more 11 in short yardage. Okay, but it hasn't turned out successful. On the flip side, in 21 personnel, as Warren Sharp said, they ran the most. And that is true. Since 2022, they've ran 86 plays in 21 personnel, which is 2 running backs, one wide receiver. So basically, Alec Ingold, a running back, and 1 tight end, or 1 wide receiver. In this case, however you want to classify it. I'm sorry, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. They ranked 22nd in EPA per play, 20th in success rate, and tied 12th in third down conversion. Now, not a lot of teams running 21 personnel. So that tied 12th ranking is with a whole bunch of other 12 to 15 teams. In just 2024, 2 plays, they ran 6 plays, 12 plays in 2024. 2 of those plays resulted in a touchdown, so the data is a little bit skewed in this. In 2024, they ranked 2nd in EPA per play, 2nd in success rate, and 100%. So you have to take into account where on the field they're running the ball, if it's on the goal line, 50-yard line, or or even before midfield. You have to take all of that into account. Now, between if it's third and short and you're not even at midfield, you're not necessarily going to run the ball. You're trying to get more yards so that way you can at least score some points so the Dolphins are more likely to pass the ball. Now, the Dolphins in 21 personnel, as I said, from 2024, I already gave out those statistics: 22nd in EPA per play, 28th in success rate, 12th in third down conversion. Just from 2022 to 2024, 15th in EPA per play, 19th in success rate, 4th in third down conversions. So, do they change their philosophy up, coach, or do they stick with it based on these metrics if we're evaluating this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a conversation we've had the entire offseason when it comes to Mike McDaniels that I don't expect him to change what he's doing. I expect the 21 personnel outside zone to still be the same Mike McDaniel that we've seen in the previous years.
Yeah, yeah, and we have talked about them trying to run a little bit more out of 11 personnel. Yes, that's going to be there, but there's certain situations where it'll call for it. Might we see more 11 personnel runs? I think so. They have a different wide receiver group. They have a change in the types of running backs and the types of tight ends they have. So the personnel in terms of players is a little bit different. I think the schematic is going to be the same, but a little bit more diversity. Now, let's get to where we actually want to talk about is the running back runs from the preseason game. So we'll be taking a look at Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon. And this comes back to one of my hot takes from the offseason saying that Ollie Gordon could push Jalen Wright for running back number two and potentially in a couple years, could be running back one if Devon A-Chain catches the ball a little bit more. So let's dig right into the tape, coach.
Yes, sir. Let's. All right, bringing it up now. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the Jalen Wright runs. Um, Thought I had this in order, but well, yeah, I do because this is the first run from the 8 yard line that Jalen Wright gets. So this is going to be a counter concept. So, when you're talking about counter, even though Jalen Wright is starting same side, you're going to see him step to the inside and then go play side. You're going to get Jonas Savaianaya pulling across. Also going to have Julian Hill. Everybody else should be trying to wash this down. And what we're going to see here is that Julian Hill is supposed to be your kick guy kicking out 45.
Mm-hmm.
Would like to see Savaianaya get around the edge there, but because of Pharaoh Brown here on the edge, Savaianaya kind of gets caught up there and is not able to loop around and get number 44. So we get a bit of a nice cutback there by Jalen Wright and able to get down to the 2 yard line.
So roll back to the clip because this is actually the second run for Jalen Wright. They look like they're in 12 personnel. The EPA on this play, by the way, is a point 0.4. He needs 8 yards. He gets 6. So by the metrics, this is a successful run because I believe this is a first down run. So this is a successful play right there by Jalen Wright. He was able to go more so on an ad hoc cutback and gain yards out of that, which is something you want to see. If the hole's not there, Jalen Wright is able to make lemonade out of lemons. Now, if you go back, slow roll it where Jonas Savaianaya is able to get to and where tight end Julian Hill messes up. So look, he's coming out. We'll pause it right there once again. Let's take a look at the motion, and maybe potentially the motion might have disrupted the timing of this run play. Thank you for the slow motion. So during the snap, he's still running, and it looks like some type of jet motion. Now, with the motion, if you roll it back to the beginning of the clip, I think 45, he was just staying stagnant the whole time. He did not move with Julian Hill at all. So yeah, there you go. That's what it is. Number 45 has a free run, and if they waited a little bit for Julian Hill to get a little bit uh deeper running, he might number 45 might not have had that big of a running start. And Savaianaya might have been able to climb up to Noah Sewell to block him off so that way the cutback lane would be there. We wouldn't know it because it didn't happen, but this is one of those things where sometimes the motion does not necessarily do its job effectively. That's what I gathered from the play.
Yeah. So this one might actually be the first one, Hussam. Um, this might be the
Is it?
first carry that Jalen Wright had in the game.
Okay. Is this
So
at the
this
Chicago
one,
17?
let's see.
Yes, it is.
Yes, looks that way. All right. So this is going to be, let's see, as we
And
start
well,
here.
you should slow
So this
play
is
it. Yeah.
inside zone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so inside zone, Jalen Wright's going to be going to the right side here. Got some motion coming across. So we're going to get split flow action. Idea here is that this guy coming in motion is going to hold number 22 here. You're going to see if that obviously doesn't happen. And then you're going to get Larry Borum blocking out here to number 45, James Daniels out to number 69. And if you watch the two of them, the way they start is similar, right? And when Jalen Wright, we see we got a bobbled snap up here as well. But as Jalen Wright is taking this handoff, he should be reading these two blocks, thinking that we're cutting it back through here because you have the combo of Aaron Brewer and Savia Naya working up to number 44. But you can see that as we roll a little further, that Borum gets a little too far outside and gets beat to the inside here, right? And that's what really forces Jalen Wright to cut this back even further. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he gets, what is that, 2 yards there. But had Borum been able to maintain that block a little better, then I think that we get Jalen Wright getting more vertical, right? You have Daniels in good position. I think he fits in behind here, and this turns into more of a 4 to 5 yard run than the 2 yard run that it ends as.
Yeah, I don't think Jalen Wright would have been able to get to that pile. I think that whoever was the backside tight end coming through the front side, I think that is Ju who's the one coming on the motion? That's not Julian Hill.
The motion is Westbrook Akine.
Okay, yeah,
Julian Hill is the one that's on the split flow action.
gotcha. So Hill's on the split flow action. Nick Westbrook-Akine, I don't know how the play or how the motion is called, but he should have been the blocker on that. Meanwhile, the blocker comes out as a free release, and once again, that's one of those things where the motion that should have helped on the play, it pretty much did not. This led to a negative -zero point 0.9 EPA. This is a 2nd and 4, and Jalen Wright got 0 yards on this.
All right. And then our next one here. Is this one even a runner? Did I pull the wrong play? Let's see. Nope. All right. We'll move on to the next one. All right. Now we're back on track.
Yeah,
So
we're at
now this was
Chicago
after.
2.
Yep. This is the 2nd and 2 from the Chicago 2. And on this one, I believe we're going to get duo, if I remember correctly. Let's play. Yep. So we can tell it's duo because everybody on the line is stepping one way. In this case, the entire line is stepping to the left, and Jalen Wright is coming back to the right side. And the main failed block that you have on this one is going to be right here, and that's Julian Hill is not able to get his head across. Right. We see that Pharaoh Brown has a similar block, but he doesn't give up penetration, whereas Julian Hill is giving up that penetration. If Julian Hill can wash his guy a little flatter the way that Pharaoh Brown does, then I think that you're able to hit this off to the right side a little more. And you can see
Mhm.
that Jalen Wright kind of gets there late, but by then, right, there's too much traffic there and ends up getting tackled short of the line.
Now, do you wonder on these types of plays, during preseason, during camp, you could potentially be on a roster bubble? I don't think Jalen Wright is on the roster bubble, but to make it known, do you think he could have potentially bounced this outside, or was he just trying to follow the direction of where the blocking was supposed to go to?
I think he was trying to follow the direction of the blocking. You get into the problem here that you know if we're talking about a roster bubble guy that's in this position and then tries to bounce it and ends up getting tackled for a 3 yard loss or something like that, then that's obviously an even worse situation than what they end up with. Especially when you run these inside zone and duo plays, it's not too often that you have success when you start going forward and then bounce it to the outside. You obviously have the Devon Achans, guys like that are just special in that regard. But even in Jalen Wright's situation where he is competing for running back 2 reps, I don't think that it makes a lot of sense here for him to try to do that. There's just too much risk of losing even more yards if you do
Hmm.
that.
I think you can also take a look at Westbrook Akine on this play too. Right after he inserts into the attached formation right behind the tight end and Larry Borum. His assignment was to take on any defensive back that was coming from the outside. Now, look, he could have potentially put his hands on Noah Sewell right there, but his main blocking assignment is supposed to be number 29. Take anyone that's coming from the outside. Now, from there, what this dual block is supposed to do is that Julian Hill is supposed to take that first level defender out, make sure he's not part of the play, and then potentially work up to the second level if the hole is made. Just the play could not pan out how it was supposed to because of the field block attempt by Julian Hill.
Yeah, and this is the type of stuff that we're talking about a little bit earlier. That when you have this on film, like they could have run this 20 times in practice and never seen it exactly this way. But now you have this on tape, right? And like you said about Westbrook Akine, had he just stayed towards the inside here, gotten more towards Julian Hill's right hip here, and just sealed Sewell on the inside there, right? Then maybe we're talking about right with a one-on-one versus 29 or 36 here
Hmm.
instead of trying to break Sewell's block. So that's just the kind of stuff that you can get on tape when we run these plays in preseason.
And the funny thing is that for most of Jalen Wright's runs, all but two of them came from 12 personnel, which leads me to believe they're trying to experiment something in the run game out of 12 personnel.
Definitely an interesting note for that. All right, so we get the next one here. So this is again going to be duo, just a little different action here. So now we're getting it's again duo to the right, but we're going to get Julian Hill coming across, essentially in what the role Alec Ingold would have in, kind of split flow action here, but entire offensive line stepping to the left, Jalen Wright coming to the right. Should get the kick out here from Julian Hill. You can see that we get number
Hmm.
47 is coming through kind of free. And I think that is on Borum, right? It's the combo here is Daniels and Borum through number 96 up to number 44. So, or up to 47. So perfect world here. I think what you see happen is that we get a little more vertical movement here, and that double team is able to consume 44 or 47 and we stay vertical. But we don't get that. And then in addition to that, we get the rookie over here, Savaya Naya, having a really ugly rep here, gets a little too far inside, leans out a little bit,
Hmm.
and misses
Austin
his guy
Booker is able to
completely.
get through it. Yep.
Yep. So now when Jalen Wright's trying to cut back from the linebacker that we couldn't get off of from the combo, he's also dealing with Booker there, and not a whole lot for the running back to do on that one.
All right, Eric, if you roll it back, and this is going to be another conversation, we will circle back to previous seasons and this off season. Look at how the motion on the cross Julian Hill just did. Look at how Noah Sewell moves with the motion, and that leaves a gap opened up for 47 to get through. Now, a lot of the blocks that I watched last season from 2024, due to these motions, and we saw it on tape last year, is they're motioning late with the man, and the gap potentially opens up because in these dual blocks, the offensive linemen work together on the first level, then whoever's assignment is able to get to the second level, that takes time. And sometimes there's empty space for the gap rushers to get through to the first level without even being touched, as we see on this play. And this play led to a negative 1.4 EPA. This is a third down, needed 1 yard. Jalen Wright was able to get 0 yards on this. So this was not a successful play. So you can attribute this to blocking potentially from Larry Borum. But my first and main culprit with this is the motion that was called on this play. Maybe potentially if that cross motion was done with Julian Hill and he comes attached to the side of Larry Borum, maybe the play might have looked a little bit differently.
Yes, sir. All right. So now we get the fourth down play. And this one is again going to be duo, but now we're going the opposite way. And you can see it the entire, as the ball is snapped here, once we get there, right? Entire offensive line is stepping to the right. Jalen Wright is going to the left. And if we look at the box count here, right, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4,
Three, four.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You got all 11 players in the box, right? And you take out the quarterback from the count, you take out the running back. So you're -2 in terms of ability to run against this right off the bat. So clearly a situation where they were trying to get this on film. I think that regular season they do something different. But even with that, as the ball snapped here, we look at the way these combination blocks are going to work. It's going to be Savaianaya and Paul working up to number 47. Solo block here, solo block here, solo block there. 36 ends up as an unblocked player. I think 25 is the other one that would technically get left unblocked. And where I saw the issue on this one is I think you were supposed to have a combination block between Pharaoh Brown and Julian Hill through number 94
Up
to
to
number
44.
44. Yep. And you got Westbrook Akini, I think, is working to number 22. You can see if that combo never gets to 44 and he gets through untouched. But what I think is happening here, right, is that when we look at Pharaoh Brown take on that block, when we look at body positioning, right, there is nowhere for Julian Hill to fit into this block. Whereas had Pharaoh Brown got his head on the other side, then that creates the opportunity for Julian Hill to fit in. And I think that the two of them could have washed this down. You've got Akine on 22. And then I think you get into a situation where now you're asking Jalen Wright to beat number 25 out here, a cornerback one-on-one. And, typically most offenses want to make cornerbacks make tackles. Obviously didn't work out in this scenario, but when we're talking about the players that are going to be left unblocked with the scheme, right? It makes sense that we block this guy because he can come off the edge, right? So we leave 36 unblocked, we leave 25 unblocked, and then we have the other 9 accounted for as long as Pharaoh Brown and Julian Hill execute their combo block, but they don't in this case.
So here's where on film or what I think they're trying to get to here. Usually they run these type of blocks and runs with Alec Ingold in the fullback position. What he does is from the fullback position, he motions and then he runs and shoots through either the A or the B gap and blocks, and that is able to create that rushing lane or that gap. Here, I think they're just experimenting with two tight ends at the line as extra blockers to see if the first level blocks can potentially work against these heavy sets on these short yardage runs and on these short yardage conversions that they need to get. Fail, definitely. But here's where I think this could potentially change. Where do you see Julian Hill on the line? So if you pause the play right at the beginning, Eric, if you pause the play, if you, pause the play right now. If you take Julian Hill off the line and you insert him at fullback, so just imagine it. He motions a little bit back right behind Patrick Paul, and the ball is snapped. He's shooting straight up through the gap where the blocker would potentially get through. Now, if you're taking a look through the front rules, you have 11 people. You're taking if it's the dual blocks sliding over to the right side, there's going to be the B gap open up, and that's where Julian Hill would shoot through so that way he could get Noah Sewell. That's where Nick Westbrook-Akine could take a defensive back or two, and the dual block happens with Farrell Brown working on 94, and maybe the only unblocked guy would be number 22, a smaller defensive back, and Jalen Wright could potentially make work one-on-one.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going. All right. So now we're on to. So this is outside zone, right? And it's kind of a different variation of it, not one that I'm a huge fan of where they get going horizontal more than downhill. But you can see here that what we're getting is Tanner Connor is getting out to number 45. We've got Julian Hill, Larry Borum working through number 90 up to 44. Keon Smith and Daniel Brunskill through 96 or whatever that is, up through 47. And then we're just solo blocks on the backside here. And you can see that as he's getting the ball, right, he should be reading this defender first. Clearly, we have him sealed to the inside. So we're looking to get to the next level. Tanner Connor is giving a read that should take him right there, but we don't get much movement from Tanner Connor on that kick out block. And we also have Larry Borum not able to stay on his defender very well, right? That prevents us from having a lane to the outside here. And then just kind of, icing on top is that Brunskill gets too deep into this double team, right? And this should be more like what these two are, right? Where they both can have eyes on the linebacker here, but as far in as Brunskill is, there's no way for him to see the linebacker. You can see Keon Smith is looking to the linebacker. And ideally, what you would have there would be Keon Smith taking number 96 with Brunskill falling off to the backside, right? And if you, that's obviously a lot of stuff, right? You need Tanner Connor to be better, you need Larry Bourne to be better, and you need the Smith and Brunskill combo to be better, right? But you can see the potential of that play if they can, look at this film and clean those things up a little bit. And we'll keep moving. Getting more outside zone here.
That was a good run by Jalen Wright right there, trying to bounce off. That was actually a successful play. That was a 1st and 10. He got 5 yards out of that. The EPA on that was 0, so it was an absolute number, but it was a successful play. He was able to get 50% of the yards needed on 1st down. Once
Yeah.
again, that play is actually out of 11 personnel. Look at that.
Yes, it is. So outside zone again, we don't count this defender because he's a safety late walking up into the box, but we get the split flow action from Pharaoh Brown, solo block here, and then you've got Savaianaya and Daniel Brunskill working up to number 47, and you can see that they're doing a good job with that.
Oh,
And
look at that block by Eric Ezukanma. No block, no rock. That was a perfect seal right there. You
yes,
can't
sir, and
teach that better than that.
that's how you make corners make tackle. You bring that wide receiver in to, like I said, he wasn't accounted for from the, the base blocking scheme, but you have this wide receiver out here, pick off the safety, make the corner make a tackle. If we're nitpicking at this a little bit, would have liked to see Jalen Wright be a little more decisive here and try to continue through there. Had a little hesitation there, ends up getting the extra yards. But if we're talking about trying to always get those hidden yards, I would have liked to see him stay a little more downhill on that run.
I think that was an actual good sequence by Daniel Brunskill and Jonas Savaitai that is perfectly executed in how you want to get your dual block and then work up to the second level. Savaitai, obviously, he's moving laterally. Brunskill has his hand on the zero tech. Savaitai is able to get his hands on the zero tech, and Brunskill moves up to the second level on Ruben Hippolyte. And yeah, maybe if Jalen Wright didn't hesitate, you could have potentially seen something up there. But I think because where Ezukanma seals it off, he moves the defensive back, and he might have gotten 2 to 3 yards instead of the 5.
Yeah. All right. A couple more here for Jalen Wright.
Once again, 11 personnel. This is second quarter on Chicago's 7-yard line. He needs 7 yards. He gets 7 yards. Successful play. EPA is positive. It is a 1.9.
Yeah, and this was, in my opinion, the best run that Wright had on the day. And this is again going to be outside zone. So we're getting, it's actually going to be Borum and Ezukanma that are working the combo block up to the safety on that one. And then you got Keon Smith with the solo block here. And then you've got Savaya Naya and Brunskill again working the double team there, or the combo up to number 44. Fetty is kind of put into a tough position here to try to cut this off. Would have liked to see him just continue to wash that down all the way, where Jalen Wright could have cut that back a little further. But when you look at what Jalen Wright is doing here, his ability to get vertical, one of the coaching points when they're talking to the running backs on this is that by the third step, you want to make your decision and you want to make the cut by the fifth step. So as we watch Jalen Wright get out of it here, right? 1,
That's
2,
one,
3,
two,
right?
three.
4, 5. On that fifth step,
Decision
he
is
is
made right
cutting,
there. Yep.
getting vertical, and you can see how that pays off. That even though we're not getting a great block from Fetty, the fact that he's staying on path for those 5 steps and then cutting gives him that ability to squeeze through and cross the goal line.
Yep. That was a good play by Jalen Wright right there. And then the very last run by him was just a 1 yard run in 12 personnel on 1st and 10. That gained a negative -0.5 EPA in 12 personnel.
Yep, so this is going to be outside zone once again. And this is going to be to the weak side, right? No tight end on this side. So we're getting solo block out here. We're getting a combo block between Keon Smith and Dan Brunskill. And those two are doing okay on that, right? Because they're comboing out to number 35. You can see that Keon's got his eyes out there. Keon is sliding off to number 35. But Borum, or no, that's Jackson Carman, is a little late there, right? The motion helps a little bit with the linebackers. Should be Ryan Hayes fitting in here with Jackson Carman. They're comboing up to 43. And would have liked to see Carman falling off now to get number 43 so that cutback hits a little cleaner. Obviously, it doesn't. Carman never gets the block, and we end up with the run stuff there.
Yeah. So I think on most of these plays with Jalen Wright, not all of them are necessarily his fault. From what you can see by the metrics and just watching the game live on TV initially. And this is why we're doing this film review to see what the issues were. Sometimes it's blocking, sometimes it's motion, sometimes it's just the straight up play design in the front they're facing. This is why they're trying to get these plays on film in the preseason. So now let's move on to the 8 runs by Ollie Gordon.
All right, so this is the first one, and this is going to be, probably his most impressive. You got that big broken tackle there.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be outside zone to the right with some split flow action. So you get Hayes out here with a solo block. You're going to have, looks like Preeb with a solo block, and then you have Addison West and Braden Daniels are working the combo through to the linebacker. And again, you have Isaiah McKenzie here, a little indecisive off the ball, just kind of trying to see where his eyes are going. He should be getting almost horizontal, sprinting to cut off number 27 here, right? Kind of he lacks that athleticism on the backside of this outside zone because Ali reads this really well, right? He sees it. He sees the cutback, hits that cutback lane, right? Had we been able to get a little vertical movement on that linebacker, then he gets through here clean against
Mm-hmm.
number 43. But he ends up making something out of it, which is something that we really didn't see a whole lot in 2024 is running backs that are able to, break tackles and, make things happen even when it's not perfect with the offensive line.
Yeah, take a look at that orbit counter motion that actually took the corner that's follow him and even the linebacker, number 43. He shifted a little bit towards the boundary side of the play, and that initially helps him hesitate a little bit. I thought the center could have potentially went to number 43, but that would have left number 30 wide open. That was good, a good protection, good call by the center to get up to that level. But that step of hesitation um, helped a little bit. That was just a good bounce off by Ollie Gordon. The offensive line, they did their job. It was a clean enough lane. Once again, in 11 personnel, they were able to get up to their men to block.
Yep. And just one last thing on that, right? Like this number 30 is not part of the blocking call
Yeah, he's
originally,
not.
right? So that's why, that combo is initially looking to get to 43, right? They're usually going to look the first combination block that you have. So the first two linemen are solo. This is the first combo that you have is typically going to try to look to the first, second level defender in the box. So had he been up there the whole time, and you can see West calling that out. But this is where, when you get your second and third line in there, you get a safety walking up late. And this is where some of the communication issues can surface that, now we're not necessarily on the same page as to which linebacker we're climbing to on that.
Yeah, then on the very, very far side of the field, wide receiver number 81. Not sure who that is. He's able to hold his block up against the defensive back, and if Ollie Gordon was able to burst through that, that could have been a nice 30, 40-yard chunk play.
Yes, sir. Looks
Look at
like
that.
is that Weiss, looks like Theo Weiss.
hmm
All right, so on to Gordon's next run here.
11 personnel again.
Yep. So now we get outside zone again. And again, like the way that Ali is reading this, right? Eyes go to this defensive end immediately, right? The end man on the line of scrimmage. And you can see at the combo between Pharaoh Brown and Ryan Hayes, clearly he's got outside leverage, right? So now our eyes go to here. And we can see that Preeb is getting that outside position. And you can see the way this is starting to develop here that had Pharaoh Brown again been able to maintain that block, continue to press him outside, right? We're pretty close to getting Ollie Gordon through there, right? And on a lane outside here. Instead, Pharaoh Brown falls off, have to get that late cut, and then we get some backside pursuit there. But I like what Ollie did on the play in terms of reading it, and I like how close this was to being a big play if we just clean up a little bit there.
Yeah, that was a negative -0.3 EPA. That was first and 10. He needed 3 yards. That was right at the start of the fourth quarter. That was an unsuccessful play. He got, what, 30% of the yards needed.
Moving on again, kind of a light formation here. Don't Well, they do have a tight end. He comes in, so probably Look at
Once again,
11
11
personnel.
formation. Yep, 11 personnel.
Yep. So now we're getting what's essentially a long trap, is what we refer to this as. If he were pulling and trying to trap an interior defender, it would just be a regular trap. But because he's trying to kick out the end out here, Preeb is pulling across. This is a long trap. Everybody else is trying to block down and create a wall. So this defensive end actually plays this really well. You can see that as McKenzie is stepping inside, the end steps down inside, and he does a good job of doing what we call wrong arming it, where he comes in with that outside shoulder and takes on that block. And when a defender does that, it's almost impossible to be able to continue that kick out block. I like that Ali, may have seen that we have an unblocked defender out there and does a good job of using some vision to cut back on that and get something out of it still.
Yeah, he tried to get skinny, trying to go through that hole, but the defender ultimately got his hand on him. And this is actually a staple play for Miami, either out of 11 or 21 personnel, that long trap by the left guard. Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones did that a lot last season. Sometimes they were successful, depending on the type of front and depending on where the defensive end was lined up at. If it was a long trap and if the edge defender was more so on a wide nine, the edge defender needs to crash in a little bit longer, giving that left guard or right guard, whichever way the long trap is happening, giving them more time to set their body, set their feet, and gain that leverage. Where if that edge defender was going to long arm them, they could get ready for it.
Yes, sir. All right, let's keep rolling. So now we're down near the goal line. Right now we have 12
personnel.
personnel
Hmm.
and getting some more outside zone here. So this is the one I feel like Ali got a little too anxious here on this one. So we're going to get Pharaoh Brown coming in motion, right? And let's roll that back one more time. So I should go directly to this edge defender. Clearly, right? He's staying to the outside, eyes to the next defender. He's got outside leverage. We get eyes to this defender. He's got outside leverage. Now, looking at the gap here between Preeb and Addison West, and you see Braden Daniels trying to get in there on that combo block. I felt like on this one, had Ollie Gordon just stayed on path and tried to pound it in there between Preeb and West, right? There's not a lot there, but I feel like that may have been a better option than cutting back where we have, one blocker and four defenders left on the backside there. So this, out of all of the runs that Gordon had, this was probably the one, and this is again nitpicking, right? That had we just stayed play side a little longer on this, I think would have been a better option for Ollie here.
Yeah, that's one of those rookie learning opportunities where Ollie Gordon needs to take a look at that film where he just said, try to let the play continue to develop and try to squeeze and fit into that hole like he did on the play previously. I think he was trying to get to the touchdown, trying to bulldoze his way like he did in college. But man, this is the NFL. These guys are going to be equally as heavy and stronger than Ollie Gordon.
All right, four more to go for Ollie.
Is also 12 personnel.
Yep. So now here we're getting it's an outside zone, but it's got some wind back action to it, right? Everybody starts to the right, given that outside zone look. We get a little bit of over pursuit here. We get Hayden Rucci coming around, right? And obviously would like to see him be able to power through and get there. But had
Oh
Hayden
man,
Rucci got
Rucci could have blocked him. Aiden Rucci could
if
have
he
blocked
got
him.
anything here, if Rucci had gotten anything on 57, this was essentially a walk-in touchdown. So, and I mean, I guess maybe, again, if you want to nitpick this a little further, maybe you would like to see Wright take that further back. But I mean, Rucci's got to get at least a piece of 57, and I think we end up in the end zone on that
Yeah,
one.
but if you take a look at his eyes and where his feet are, he has already made his decision within the third step. So let's count the steps real quick. Ready?
Yep.
It's gonna go
Here, so that's one, two,
one,
three. Yep. And
two,
he's winding
three.
it back.
Yep. Fourth step, he makes a decision of where he wanted to go. Not at
Yep.
the fifth. If Rucci got his hands on him, if you watched him, he might have been able to get 1 yard or so. Might have not have been a touchdown, but he could have gained at least yardage to potentially squeeze it. And the other thing, if he reached out to the goal line there, albeit it would be really hard if he reached out there and the ball crossed, that still counts as a touchdown.
This is true. All right. So next one looks like
12
we're in
personnel.
12 personnel again. So now we're getting that duo look from Ollie Gordon where the line, everybody is stepping to the left. Ollie's getting it downhill, going to the right, getting nice movement between West and Braden Daniels. You
It
got
is the same
McKenzie getting,
exact play. This is the same exact play, coach. I think on that third down goal line where they ran that duo, where not Julian Hill, it was either Westbrook Akini or Julian Hill was coming across on a jet motion, and they did not get their hands on the defender. Here, Hayden Rucci does
yep,
where that backside defender can't cut inside.
absolutely.
So good
All
on
right, let's try to,
Rucci for learning from the previous mistake of his counterpart.
yep. All right. And then we get outside zone again here. So on this one, right, we've talked about those number of steps a few times. If we watch the way the blocking develops on here, you got McKenzie out here on a solo block, Braden Daniels on a solo. You have West and Preeb that are working essentially across two number 43. But what we have here is if you watch McKenzie here, he gets no movement at all running off the ball here, right? And Gordon never really has an opportunity to get, to finish his steps in the read, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, right?
He's still
And
trying to
then,
follow the blocking pattern, and then he hesitates because the blockers are not able to get up to that second level and maintain that that gap. Because right there, that B gap is open for the taking. But he takes that third step, he sees it, and it slows him down, and ultimately the gap closes down.
well, I think what slows him down there is right here that McKenzie's getting no movement at all on the edge here. I think if he's able to, have a clean path there, then I think that he does a little better job getting vertical. But because he has to essentially step over McKenzie, I think that's what slows him down on this one. All right, and then we'll wrap it up here with the last run that Ollie Gordon had. So this is going to be that long trap look again, opposite way this time. So it's Braden Daniels coming across. Again, everybody's blocking down, right? Hayes is giving a little bit of a bump, but he is getting down number 43. Rucci's climbing to 57. And again, right, wrong arming that play is that defensive end coming in with that right arm now makes it almost impossible to kick him out. And you can see that Ollie does solid job there of being able to read that this time, right? React to it, gets just outside before getting vertical again. And had we had Myrick doing a little better job or that's Baldwin, Monterey Baldwin, little better job of getting inside number 27 here, right? Then this could have been a really nice run where Gordon gets that jump cut to the left, gets vertical, and is either one-on-one with the safety or the corner, depending on if the wide receiver can get in there for the block.
So my question to you is, Coach, how do these offensive linemen try to neutralize the long arm on these trap concepts?
There's not a lot. I mean, the Bears in both of those played them very well. So, when this happens, you get what's called a log technique, right? And that's, essentially you kind of hook him and seal him to the inside. And that's about all that you can do with this. And this is ideal situation given what the defense did, right? In terms of Braden Daniels being able to essentially get the log block and seal him to the inside. We'd like to see him stay a little better connected, but you have Wright reading that well, getting that jump cut outside of the log block, and then getting vertical. And had we just had that seal from Monterey Baldwin, right, then we're not even talking about the kick out attempt.
So it looks like it was a myriad of things, but pretty much the same consistent theme in the run game as to why some specific run plays did not work out the way they wanted it to or the way it was drawn up to.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Well, coach, your thoughts on how they can improve up against the Lions?
Yeah, I think it's just a continued emphasis of cleaning up the small details, right? This preseason is about getting stuff on film. We've obviously got new pieces. I think if you look at, where we had a lot of the mistakes, it wasn't Patrick Paul, it wasn't Aaron Brewer, and one of them was Julian Hill, but it's a lot of the new guys in the system and a lot of them that are new to this Shanahan McDaniel style outside zone scheme. So I think that, there's obviously a difference in pace when you look at a training camp practice or even a joint practice, versus getting in a game, right? So what I'll be looking for as we get into game 2 of the preseason is, are some of these combo blocks a little tighter? We saw on some of that Brunskill didn't feel like he had his eyes in the right place with the combos. Do we clean some of that stuff up? Pharaoh Brown, are we getting the head on the right side when we have help with the combo blocks? Those are the type of things that I'll continue to be looking for as we move forward.
Yeah, stick with us here on Scouting the Fins for Coach and I and Eric as well when he's available. On these film reviews, we're going to continue these run game concepts throughout the season. All right, stick with us here on Scouting the Fins, part of the Three Yards Per Carry podcast network, also part of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Go Fins, baby.